Our current series is His Church. Our theme verse for this series is Matthew 16:18. I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it. What did Jesus have in mind when he said he would build his church? Did the church that he envisioned look like the church that we're comfortable in? So far, we've learned that his church is a praying church. If you don't like to pray, you need to learn how to pray because his church prays. His church is a powerful church. His church is a focused church. His church is a sacrificing church. His church is a generous church. His church is a supernatural church. And his church is a loving church. That's what we talked about last week. We're going to kind of continue with that theme of loving this week. Today we're going to learn that his church is a hospitable church. When you hear the word hospitality, what do you think of? Maybe some of you think of Martha Stewart or something, preparing for guests to come. Maybe you think of some place that you've been that wasn't very hospitable. Maybe a restaurant or a motel or a business, and you're like, do they even want customers? Because they sure don't act like it. Maybe you have a friend that lacks hospitality. Then again, you can probably name some places that you would consider very hospitable. What makes them hospitable? We seem to know what hospitality is when we see it, but can we define it? What is it? The dictionary defines hospitality as the friendly and generous reception and entertainment of guests, visitors, or strangers. The main understanding of hospitality deals with the way we treat visitors. Businesses know that if they don't treat their guests well, their guests won't be back. At least they should know that, because once again, I have been places where I wonder, do they even know that it's me, the customer, that is keeping them in business? Because sometimes they don't act like they care. I can't remember where it was. I went a couple of weeks ago, and I went in, and I went up to the help desk to ask for help because I had a question, and there were two employees behind the help desk, and they were talking about their week and all this other kind of stuff, and I stood there for at least 10 minutes before they even recognized that I was standing there. And I almost said, hey, I'm over here. But I shouldn't have to do that. If they're looking for guests, if they want somebody to come, especially if they're standing behind a help desk, you'd think they would notice when somebody else came. They've got their lunchtime. They've got their coffee breaks to talk about their week. They're supposed to be there to help me, but they didn't seem to really care. Waitresses and waitresses strive to be hospitable because they're hoping if they're hospitable, they'll get a little bit larger tip. We're going to spend most of our time this morning talking about guests because guests are the primary focus of hospitality as we've read in that definition. But in the church, hospitality doesn't just include guests. We're commanded to be hospitable to everyone. Peter said that we need to offer hospitality to one another. When we see the words one another in the Bible, it's usually referring to those who are already part of the family. 1 Peter chapter 4, verses 9 and 10 says, offer hospitality to one another without grumbling. Each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. And in Romans chapter 12, verse 13, Paul says, share with the Lord's people who are in need, practice hospitality. So once again, he's talking about the Lord's people. So hospitality is something we should show to those who are already part of the family. We should show hospitality to each other. You would think that showing hospitality to family would be easier than showing hospitality to strangers. But that's not always the case. Sometimes we get too comfortable with one another and we let down our guard. We start letting the real us show. Unfortunately, the real us is not always hospitable. Think about it for a moment. If you went to a restaurant or stayed at a hotel that treated you the same way that some people in your biological family or the same way that some people in your church family treat you, would you be back? We should be able to be hospitable to each other. But sometimes we don't even treat those in our family with the love and respect they deserve. Now ask yourself this question. If I treated my customers at work, those of you that work in a place where you have customers and any kind of job somewhere down the line, there are kind of customers, just you may not be dealing directly with those. If I treated my customers at work the way that I treat my biological or church family, would they come back? Are we more careful with the words we choose and the attitudes that we display when we know that our job or livelihood depend on it? Just because someone is family, it doesn't mean they deserve less. If anything, family should get our best. Fortunately, family is usually a little bit more forgiving than someone that doesn't know us yet. There's an old saying that says, you can pick your friends, but you're stuck with family. But why should we be stuck with family? We should enjoy being with our family. Our family should be enjoyable. We should look forward to it because we're treating each other the way that God wants us to treat each other. We're treating each other hospitably. Arnold Glasow says, hospitality is making others feel at home. Some people make you feel at home. Others make you wish you were home. Most of us have relatively good thoughts when we think about home. Most of us could honestly say, like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, there's no place like home. There's no place like home. But unfortunately, there are a lot of homes where people treat each other so badly that any place is better than home. We have a lot of youth that come to our Tuesday night youth, and they can't wait to get here because their home life is so bad. They want that 2 or 3 hours away from their family in an environment where they're cared for, where they're respected, not where they're necessarily attitudes and things they do isn't always accepted. We try to work with them on those things, but they know that regardless what they do, they're going to be loved. They're going to be respected. But let's transition now to the true definition of hospitality. Hospitality is making guests feel like they're home. Or in some cases, as I just said, better than being at home. How many of you, when you know a guest is coming, spend time preparing for the guests? I know there are some people that I've gone to visit, and it's like, I don't think they did. Maybe, they knew I was coming, but you can't tell by walking in. But most people, when they know guests are coming, they prepare. I know when we have guests coming to our house, unless they show up unannounced, and if somebody shows up unannounced, then they've got to take things kind of the way they are. Sometimes it's maybe we could have done a better job even for our family, as we talked about keeping up. But when guests come to our house, Mindy goes through the house almost with a white glove. Everything is mopped, everything is swept, the beds are made. If the guests are going to stay overnight, it's new sheets. We might go 2 weeks in the same sheets if it's just us. But when it's a guest, they get brand new sheets. And sometimes we don't even change the sheets after the guests. We just sleep in it after they're done with it. But they get the new sheets. Just being honest here. Some of you guys can relate, right? Everything is perfect. We mow the lawn. We pick up the trash. We do everything because guests are coming. We want to make a good impression on our guests. Often we even give the dogs a bath. Usually Mindy makes me take a bath. We want to make a good impression on the guests. So we make sure that everything is done. If they're coming for dinner, some of you put out your best dishes. Now, some of you don't have 2 sets of dishes, but a lot of you remember the days when you had 2 sets of dishes. You had your everyday dishes, and you had your special dishes for company. When you served dinner, the company got to use the special dishes. We spray some deodorizer in the house, or maybe we light a scented candle because we don't want them to smell what the house normally smells like. If you have kids, you probably sit them down and give them a refresher on proper table manners and etiquette. You tell them what is proper to do when guests are there and what isn't. We want to impress our company. We want to be on our best behavior. Even if it makes us uncomfortable, we do our best to make sure that our guests have a positive experience. Now, we all know what hospitality means when it comes to entertaining guests in our home. And we know what hospitality should look like when we visit a motel or a restaurant. But I think that too often we forget the importance of hospitality as it relates to visitors who attend our church. Are we even expecting visitors? We should be expecting visitors. There's hardly a week that goes by that we don't have at least one guest come into these doors. Are we focused on that? Do we realize there will be somebody here who doesn't know us yet? After getting to know us a little bit, will they want to come back? We need to know. Guests are coming. When we come to church, are we only looking for family, or are we ready to receive visitors? Most churches call themselves warm, friendly, and welcoming. I mean, look at the stuff that we put on websites and in brochures and all that. Every church says we're a welcoming church. We're a friendly church. Our church says that in our publications. We're a friendly church. But are we friendly? Are we welcoming to only those that we already know? I mean, all of you here would say, our church is so friendly. I just love going to seeing my friends every week, and we shake hands, and we give high fives, and some of you are huggers, you hug necks. I have a friendly church. But who are you greeting outside of your regular network of people that you already know? When you come through the doors, are you looking for familiar faces, or are you looking for unfamiliar faces? In fact, look around the room right now. Is there anyone in this room that you have never met? Now, maybe you don't remember their name. Okay, now we've got a couple people, maybe Jason and Bridget. Maybe some of you haven't had an occasion to meet them yet because this is only their second Sunday. Okay, so there may be someone like that. But is there anybody here that you recognize the face, but you've never shaken their hand? You've never said, welcome. I haven't met you yet, but I'm glad you're part of our family. If there's somebody who's been here very long at all, and you've never gone out of your way to introduce yourself, there's something wrong. We need to be welcoming. We need to be looking for new people. Now, it doesn't mean that person's going to become your best friend. They don't have to necessarily be somebody that you're inviting over for dinner. That would be nice if you did invite them to dinner. But you need to at least welcome them. Let them know you're glad they're here. The first part of the word hospitality is hospital. It comes from the Latin word hospice, which means a home, which is a haven of rest for people. In the Bible days, they didn't have hospitals. They had inns. Only the biggest towns had actual inns as we would think of an inn today. In most towns, the inns were private residences where people would take care of those who were passing through. The inns or hospices were more than just a place to sleep for the night. They were more than just a bed and breakfast. When you went to an inn, you could expect to be treated the same way you would be treated at your mother's house. In Mama's house, if you were sick, Mama takes care of you, right? Who takes care of Mama when she's sick, but Mama takes care of you if you're sick. There were no hospitals back then. The inns or hospices became places for healing as well as places for rest. If you were staying overnight in an inn in somebody's home and you were sick, they nursed you back to health. In the parable that Jesus told of the Good Samaritan, you'll recall that the man who had been beaten by the robbers was taken to an inn where he is to be taken care of. The man that first showed hospitality to him, the Samaritan, showed hospitality when the others two didn't, took him to somebody else to continue the hospitality, left him at the inn and gave some money and said, here, take care of him. This is to cover his room and board and hopefully whatever he's going to need until he's back to health. But take care of him. And when I come back, I will pay you any additional, but it was the innkeeper's job to be the nurse, to bring him back to health. An innkeeper would do anything within his or her power to make the guest feel at home. I think that's what Peter was talking about in verse 10 of the verse we read earlier. 1 Peter 4:10, he said, each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. God gives us gifts. And those gifts are not just for us. Those gifts are so we can serve other people, so we can meet their needs. When we come to church, we need to come not with the attitude, what can I get today? I sure hope the pastor has a message that I can learn something from. The purpose we come, now we will learn something, but the reason we should come is I'm going to be open my eyes. I'm going to be looking for someone that I can serve. I'm going to be looking for somebody that I can welcome. I'm going to be looking for somebody that I can love on. I am going to use of my gifts and to give them to other people who need what God has given me. Now, I mentioned that almost every church will say they are friendly and welcoming. Most of us are friendly and welcoming. But what would the visitors say that come in? Would they say the same thing? A man once wrote to syndicated columnist Abigail Van Buren. Some of you remember her from the Dear Abby column in the paper. This man wrote in and said, I presently am completing the second year of a 3-year survey on the hospitality or lack of it in churches. To date, of the 195 churches I have visited, I was spoken to in only one by someone other than an official greeter or usher. And that was to ask me to move my feet. 195 churches, and only one person other than somebody on the official hospitality team spoke to him, and when they did, it was simply to say, move your feet. They're in my way. Ouch. Hopefully Central Assembly wasn't one of those churches he visited. But unfortunately, depending on where he sat, it could have been Central Assembly. I always try to connect with our Sunday visitors during the week to see how their visit was and answer any questions they might have. Most of them have very positive things to say about the friendliness of our congregations. You guys give yourselves a pat on the back. Most will say, oh, it was a very welcoming church. I felt really at home there. In fact, most of our guests end up coming back because they have a good experience. However, I have occasionally ran into someone who says, well, you weren't a very friendly bunch. And I'm thinking, what? We're very friendly. I think we're friendly. Everybody's friendly to me. And then I'm thinking back to the comments of people who said how friendly we were. And so I quiz them a little bit more, and I try to find out, sometimes it's because they just slipped in, sat in the back row, slipped out, and nobody even had a chance to talk to them. Okay, well, we can't help with that too much. I mean, hopefully the greeters, ushers back there will still meet them. But sometimes, as I talk to them and find out where they were sitting, I say, okay, that makes sense. You were sitting by those people. Because we do have some people who will not greet someone they do not know. Even during our greeting time, we say turn and shake hands with some people around you. And I come up here and I watch, and I see some of you shaking hands with the same people every week. And there's somebody new sitting right beside you, and because you don't know them, you don't greet them. Now, that's just a few people, and I'm not talking to any of you here, okay? The people that I'm talking to, they're all gone. They're camping this weekend. So they're going to get it on DVD, or they're going to watch it on, maybe they're watching it out there while they're camping this morning. They're going to get the message, okay? So don't think I'm talking to you. We're a friendly church, and yet occasionally someone leaves, like this man that wrote in to Dear Abby, without anyone speaking to them in a friendly manner. Now, I know that most of you, if you noticed a visitor, would greet them. So it is possible they went unnoticed. But why did they go unnoticed? How can we not notice somebody that we don't know? Are we too busy talking to our friends to notice that there's a visitor in our midst? Remember the business that I went to a couple weeks ago? They were busy. They didn't even notice me because they had their conversation going. They were already enjoying fellowship time. So they didn't notice that a customer standing there. Sometimes it's because we're too focused on other things. We've got our agenda. We've got our friends. We've got all the things that we need to do. It's not that we're deliberately being rude. We're just too busy to notice that there's a guest that we don't know. One time, I had a visitor relay to me that after they were already seated, a regular attender came in and asked them to move because they were sitting in their spot. Think that visitor will ever be back? Actually, they did come back because they told me about it. That's a prime example of hospitality in some churches. That's my seat. I've been sitting in that seat for 15 15 years. How dare you sit in my spot? That's not the way we treat our guests. And most of you don't. So I'm not talking to you guys. We like to talk about the family of God. We love to come and meet together with our family. Every Sunday's like a family reunion, and it should be. But what happens when someone who isn't part of the family shows up? Christine Pohl wrote a book titled Making Room. In the book, she makes the following statement. In hospitality, the stranger is welcomed into a safe, personal, and comfortable place. A place of respect, acceptance, and friendship. Even if only briefly, the stranger is included in a life-giving and life-sustaining network of relations. People that are coming in are looking for something. They wouldn't come here if they weren't looking for something. Maybe they don't even know what they're looking for. And of course, a lot of them are looking for Jesus. They just don't know it yet. And that's the best thing we can give them. But I think if we boil it all down and get down to the nitty-gritty, what are people looking for when they come here? Now, maybe they're coming from another church across town. There was something there. Maybe it was a doctrinal change or something that they weren't in support of, or something there. And so they're trying to find somebody who's more doctrinally the same. So it could be those things. But if you boil it all down, I think the root of what everybody is looking for is relationships. Everybody's looking for some place where they can belong. Some place where they're accepted, where they feel like they're amongst people who love them. If they don't leave here feeling like they belong with us, or if they don't leave here feeling like they belong with us, why will they want to hear about the Jesus that we say is so important to us? Pastor Andy Stanley says, you belong before you believe. Kind of sounds like my favorite saying. They have to know you care before they care what you know. If they come in here and they don't feel accepted, then why would they listen to the message that we're preaching? They first have to feel like they belong. This is a place where people will love me regardless. And the things they're saying to me are because they love me. The most valuable earthly possession a person can have is warm, supportive friendship. True friendships are developed within the church community through hospitality. If we're to be a healthy church, if we're to be the church that God intended, we must demonstrate true Christian hospitality. Hospitality is making other people feel like they belong. Hospitality is a generous spirit towards others. It's being alert and noticing other people. It's being available to serve. It's not just being available, it's actually looking for opportunities to serve and asking, how can I help you? When we were in California, I was part of the Northern California network of the Assemblies of God. And I loved the way they answered their phones. When they would answer their phone, they would say, Northern California network of the Assemblies, how can I serve you today? What if we all greeted people that way? Hi, I'm so glad you're here. How can I serve you today? What can I do for you? We should be doing that with each other. But even more importantly, we should be doing that to guests. They're coming for something. What is it they need? How can we help them? Now, we do with each other ask, how are you doing? We've talked about this before. That's one of the first questions we ask somebody. Hi, good morning. How are you today? Do we really want them to answer that question? We don't want the truth. We want them to say, oh, everything's great. What if they actually told us how they were doing? Are we ready to step in and take care of that need? Or are we ready to say, you know what? I can't do that for you, but here, let me go introduce you to somebody that can help you with that. See, if we were a business, if we were a hotel, and somebody came in and there was something they needed, the hotel would do anything they could to take care of that. Now, there's some things we absolutely can't do. But if it's within our power, or if we can introduce them to someone else who can take care of that, that's hospitality. Hospitality is, how can I serve you? What do you need? How can I make you feel at home? How can I make sure you leave not lacking anything? The biggest obstacle to showing hospitality is self-centeredness. We live in a society that tells us to take care of ourselves and not worry about anyone else. Even when we come to church, our focus is on what we want and what we need. We want to spend time with our friends. We want to worship. Nothing wrong with either of those things. We want to be fed spiritually. We come to church to get something. Church, for most of us, is centered around ourselves. But that's totally opposite of what Jesus taught. Jesus taught that we should be last and everyone else should be first. When we come to church, we should be looking for those that we can invest in instead of those that will make us feel good. Pastor John Piper says the physical force of gravity pulls everything to the center of the earth. In order to break free from earth-centered life, thousands and thousands of pounds of energy have to push the space shuttle away from the center. There's also a psychological force of gravity that constantly pulls our thoughts and affections and physical actions inward towards the center of our own selves. Therefore, the most natural thing in the world is to neglect hospitality. It is the path of least resistance. All we have to do is yield to the natural gravity of our self-centered life, and the result will be a life so full of self that there is no room for hospitality. We will forget about it, and we will neglect it. So the Bible bluntly says, stop that. Build a launching pad. Fill up your boosters and blast out of your self-oriented routine. Stop neglecting hospitality. Practice hospitality. There are some people that have the gift of hospitality. Some people, and that is one of the spiritual gifts that it talks about in the Bible, gifts of hospitality. There are some people, they just breathe hospitality. I mean, they breathe in, it comes in, and they breathe out, and it splashes all over everybody. Cookie Lust back there, she has the gift of hospitality. She doesn't have to think about it. It just comes naturally. Now, there are other people, I'm not sure necessarily it's a gift of hospitality, but they have the gift of friendliness or sociability or something like that. And they, just can't have strangers. I mean, they're just insisting they've got to know everybody in the world. Cassie's one of those people. Taylor's one of those people. I mean, there is no stranger to Taylor. I mean, if he doesn't know you, he will come up and he will introduce himself. He will greet you. It comes naturally. For most of us, that doesn't come naturally. We're a little bit skittish of new people. We don't know them. We're not sure if we're going to like them. And you know what? Sometimes we won't like them. But we need to at least be friendly. We need to at least introduce ourselves. There are some people that can learn names. Bridget impresses me. She's been here now 2 Sundays, and I'll bet she knows half your names already. I mean, people were coming in this week, and she's calling them by name. I'm thinking, it took me 6 months to learn their name. How can you know that already? There are some people just have that gift. They just learn a name. They meet you one time, and they know who you are. I don't have that gift. In fact, I'll tell people when I introduce myself, and they tell me, I say, you're going to have to forgive me. I'm really terrible with names. I'm going to try really, really hard to remember that, but I'm probably going to have to ask you again next week because I'm not. And that's okay. You can ask me again. But too many times, we're embarrassed to talk to somebody because we've forgotten their name. We met them one time, and we really want to go talk to them again, but we can't remember their name, and so we're embarrassed. I can't let them know I forgot who they are. Why not just say, I'm sorry, I forgot your name. Could you remind me again? We did an outreach in Seattle one time with a group. There's a Pizza Hut down in, I think it's University District, a Pizza Hut that would open between certain hours on Friday nights to serve homeless people. The homeless people come in and get free pizza, and they'd have groups of Christians come in to meet them and all that kind of stuff. And so we were part of that and went a few times. And there was this one guy there. He was an ex-Hell's Angel guy. He was a biker, and now he's in a Christian motorcycle gang. And he had the leather jacket and all the stuff. And he had a name tag. I think on the right side, he's wearing a name tag. It had his name. On the other side, he had a tag. It said, "I'm sorry, I don't remember your name either, but I'm glad to meet you again." What's wrong with just saying, hey, I forgot your name, but I'm glad you're back again. Tell me your name one more time. Or sometimes we see somebody and we're not sure if we know them or not. We're embarrassed to go up to somebody. I'm not sure if they've been here or not. Now, what if I go introduce myself and I find out they've been here 6 months? So what? I don't know who they are. So I see people all the time coming through the door, and everybody looks like a familiar face to me. I think I've seen everybody somewhere before. So people come in all the time and say, have we ever met before? They go, no, this is my first time. Oh, well, great. I'm so glad you're here today. We're happy you're here. Let me introduce you to a couple people. Sometimes they say, oh, no, I've been here 4 or 5 times. I go, oh, I'm so sorry I haven't met you yet. But I'm glad to meet you now. My name is Jerry. Actually, I usually forget to tell them who I am. I find out who they are, and I forget to tell them who I am. And I always fail to tell them I'm the pastor. And I'm always greeting people out there. And then afterwards, you didn't tell me you were the pastor. And I say, would that have made a difference? You know, I mean, they didn't cuss at me out there or anything. I mean, you know. Sometimes we need to get beyond ourselves. That's a pride issue. It's self-centeredness that would make us say, I'm not going to talk to them again because I don't know their name. Or I'm not going to talk to them because I may not remember their name. Or I'm not going to talk to them because I'm embarrassed that I forgot their name. We need to get beyond ourselves and say, they need connections. They need to feel accepted. I will go out of my comfort zone to greet them. So there are some people that have the spiritual gift. Those with the gift are more likely to serve on a hospitality team. When we say we're recruiting people for our hospitality team, they're the ones, yes, let me have it. I want to meet people. And by the way, we are recruiting for our hospitality team. We're in the process of changing the cafe over to the connection center. We want to be there to connect with people. And if I see our people back there talking to each other and neglecting a guest, they won't be working hospitality anymore, or we'll have a deliverance service and pray over them for that demon of selfishness to be cast out of them or something, okay? But we are recruiting people to be there at the connection center and meet people, greet people. We're recruiting more ushers. We're recruiting more greeters for the doors. Those that have the gift of hospitality, they're hearing me right now and saying, I want to be part of that. I want to meet people. Yes, let me at it. And some of you going, I hope they don't ask me. Okay? Now, if hospitality actually is not your thing, we probably don't want you on that team anyway, although it can help you come out of your shell. It can help you. We can help teach you how to greet people and how to meet them. So pray about it. See what God's calling you to do, because we do need people to help in those areas. Amen, Jake? Jake is helping us usher. Taking up the offering is different than greeting someone. So he is going to help with the ushering part, but he probably won't be one we have at the doors. Nikki, on the other hand, Nikki has that gift. The team effort. That's right. Some people have it naturally, but that doesn't excuse us. We can't say, I don't have the gift of hospitality, so I don't need to be hospitable. We are all commanded to be hospitable. Some people, it just comes naturally, but all of us are commanded. Be hospitable. Practice hospitality. It says practice because it's something we need to work at. Practice makes perfect. The more we do it, the more we force ourselves out of our comfort zone, the more we make ourselves do it, the more natural it becomes. And if we do it often enough, practice makes perfect. Some of you right now are very imperfect in the hospitality area. You can become perfect. Just practice it. And if at first you don't succeed, try again. The writer of Hebrews wasn't just talking to those with a gift of hospitality when they said, Hebrews 13:2, do not forget to show hospitality to strangers. Those with a gift of hospitality wouldn't forget. It would come naturally. It just oozes out of them. But the rest of us also need to show hospitality. And the second part of the verse tells us why we need to show hospitality. It says, for by so doing, some have shown hospitality to angels without knowing it. If you knew an angel would be visiting our church today, how many of you would be looking around trying to figure out who the angel was? Now, how many of you would avoid the angel and run the other direction, try to get as far away as possible, because that angel may be bringing judgment or wrath? Now, most of us, if we knew it was an angel, we'd be, I want to meet an angel. I've never met a real live angel. Maybe you have, you just don't know it. If you knew an angel was visiting, you'd be trying to figure out who it was and making an effort to meet them. If you knew Jesus would be visiting our church today, how many would be looking for him? How many would want to go shake his hand, hug his neck? You know what? That visitor coming through those doors could be an angel. That angel or that visitor coming through the door could be Jesus Christ. And if you don't greet them, you've just missed an opportunity to greet Jesus. Jesus said when we do something for someone else, we're doing it for him. Every time we greet a stranger, we are greeting Christ. Anytime we serve someone, we're serving Christ. If Jesus were here, he would go out of his way to show hospitality to strangers. And we are his representatives here on earth. We show hospitality because Christ would show hospitality. But hospitality isn't something we just do here at the church. This is where it starts. If we can't do it here at the church, we're not going to do it anywhere. So this is a good training ground to learn how to be hospitable to each other and learn how to be hospitable to strangers, because it's on our turf. It's a little less threatening to us. But hospitality really needs to go beyond these walls, and we need to start being hospitable to people we meet on the streets, people we meet in the grocery store, and even people who don't treat us with hospitality first. We go out of our way to be hospitable to them, because too many times we want to do unto others as they did unto us, instead of doing unto others as we wish they would do for us. So hospitality needs to go out there. There are many people that will never come through these doors on their own until they feel accepted by one of us and see Christian hospitality played out on the streets. And once they see that, because too many times they have been rejected by Christians, and they say, I don't want anything to do with Christians. I don't want anything to do with the church because I've been ostracized. I've been rejected by Christians. There are a couple of homeless guys that come in to see me often. One especially only has about 3 teeth, I think, in his whole mouth. And he comes in. The first time he came in was during the winter, and he was cold, and his blankets were wet, and he needed a place. So we had a sleeping bag upstairs that somebody had left after camp and never claimed. So I gave him a new sleeping bag and a new pillow, and he was hungry. So I always keep stuff down in the freezer for my lunches. And so I don't know if it was burrito or pizza or something. I made him something for lunch and fed him and gave him some coffee to drink. And he comes back periodically. He can't attend church because he's a child molester. And so he can't be in the church because there are kids here, and he knows that. But he will sometimes be walking by, and he will just come in looking for me. And sometimes I'm not here, and he'll come in and say, is Pastor Jerry around? And they'll say, no, he's not here. Okay, well, tell him I was here and I said hi. He'll come in sometimes on Sunday morning. I get here early. And he'll come in while we're setting up, and he'll come in, and during the winter, he'll come in sometimes to see if we've made the coffee yet. He'll come and say, you got any coffee on? I'm cold. And he'll come in, and I'll give him a cup of coffee. And he has told me, he said, most churches won't let me through their doors. I know I can't be there when church is going on because there's kids, and legally I can't be there with kids. But he says, most churches, the pastor won't talk to me. Most churches won't offer me coffee. When I try to come in, they kick me out. He says, you accepted me. That's where it starts. We need to accept them. We went to Camp Hope a few weeks ago to help with the meal down there. Went down to serve the meal, and we're not the only church that serves meals down there. There's other churches that go serve meals, but we got there, and as the meal was being cooked, we just all sat down and started talking to the homeless people around the tables. And during the mealtime, those that weren't serving sat there and ate with them and talked with them. And after the meal, we just hung out. We talked for about an hour after the meal was over. And one of the guys that's down there is friends of Elaine and Ed's son-in-law, Ethan, one of Ethan's friends. And he was at their house a few days later, and he was going on and bragging to Ed about how neat it was to have our people there actually talking to them. He said most churches come in and they're just doing their duty. They're just coming in, maybe trying to check it off their list. Okay, we fed the homeless, check. And they come in, they do the meal, and they leave. He said, the people from your church, they sat down and they actually cared about us, and they talked to us, and they built relationships. They asked us our names. That's hospitality. Hospitality is more than just offering a bottle of water. Hospitality is more than just giving something to eat. We should be doing that. But hospitality is saying, I accept you. You belong. I love you. Hebrews says, practice hospitality. something we have to work at. It may not come naturally, but his church is a hospitable church. Are we doing our part to accept everyone and to reach them with Christian hospitality? Because they have to belong before they will believe. His church is a hospitable church. Heavenly Father, I pray that you would take this message today and you would speak to us individually. Each of us are at different places when it comes to this hospitality thing. For some people, it's natural and it just happens. Others of us, maybe until today, we didn't even stop to think, are we hospitable or not? We just come in and we know we have our friends and we enjoy being here. And maybe this is a wake-up call for some of us, that when we come, we need to open our eyes. We need to be open to the fact that there may be somebody here who knows absolutely nobody. And if I can reach out to them, if I can accept them with your love, they may come back. And if they continue to come back, they'll open up and they'll soften and they'll start listening to the message that's being preached. Help us to evaluate our own lives and see where we need to work. And all of us aren't going to be on the hospitality team, but we can all be more hospitable. Help us to love people and to accept them the way that you would if you were here with us on Sunday mornings. Thank you, Jesus. Amen.